Welcome to the Book Fair Podcast. My name is Anthony, and this week is spring break. On the podcast, we have quite a few new releases, some news relating to ongoing book bans in Florida, and some good news out of Wyoming. Also, coming up this Friday, we have an interview with middle grade author Melanie Hill. Stay tuned for that. If you'd like to hear more, make sure to follow the podcast on Blue Sky, Instagram, and TikTok at Book Fair Pod. But first, let's take a look at some new releases, starting with Ramadan Rain by Jamilah Thompkins-Bigelow and illustrated by Aliaa Betawi. A child grapples with needs and wants and wishes during Ramadan in this quietly moving picture book from Thompkins-Bigelow and Betawi. As Mama and Haneen take the bus in the rain, the child grumbles, "I miss having a car. I'm getting all wet." Mama responds, "Duas, or prayers, said on a rainy day, get answered, especially during Ramadan." At the masjid, Haneen encounters others with new clothes and plushies, and channels a yearning for similar objects into an Eid card for Mama. But Mama's resultant upset suggests that the items are out of reach and leads Haneen to ask the creator for what he wants most. On Eid, Mama surprises Haneen, and Haneen makes a new card that illustrates the duo's bond. Rainy day visuals contrast with more vibrant hues in delicate illustrations across a work that employs an apt metaphor, weather, for both the family's economic anxiety and the main character's internal turmoil. The protagonists are depicted with brown skin, background characters are portrayed with various skin tones, and this book is recommended for ages 4 to 8. Next is Breakout by Christina Wyman. A 13-year-old navigates the acne scale of doom, strained friendships, and parental insensitivity in this fresh and funny drama. Brooklynite Ellison Starr's acne makes her feel like Mount Vesuvius in human form. Not only does her dermatological struggle affect her confidence, it's also impacting her relationships. With Ellis feeling self-conscious about her breakouts, repeatedly skips weekend get-togethers, her BFF stops reaching out. At home, her mother simultaneously minimizes Ellis's concerns about her problem skin and blames her for its worsening condition. To Ellis's mortification, Mom even discusses it with other adults, including a new boyfriend. Stress surrounding her 8th grade capstone project, which Ellis must research and present in 8 weeks' time, makes her feel even worse. Luckily, supportive Aunt Lydia and therapy dog in training Rocco help Ellis understand the connection between acne and stress, empowering her to seek agency through honest conversations about home and school life. Candid, humorous narration centers adolescent angst while highlighting financial tension in a family anchored by separated blue-collar parents who can't afford to get a real divorce, resulting in another snappy, sensitive, and sage offering from author Wyman. Ellis has Greek and Irish ancestry. An author's note is included, and this book is recommended for ages 8 to 12. Next is No Way, Never Sisters by Chantel Acevedo and Natalia Sylvester. Acevedo and Sylvester pull a reverse parent trap in this effervescent novel about at-odds tweens scheming to sabotage their parents' relationship. Every interaction between sporty, popular Roxana Romero and her artistic, reserved classmate Melissa Flores ends in misunderstandings and hurt feelings. The only thing the 12-year-olds see eye to eye on is their mutual dislike of the romantic relationship between Melly's mother and Roxy's father. When their parents announce their engagement and the quartet is moving into a fixer-upper that they will spend the summer restoring as a family, the girls resolve to break up the couple by amplifying the adults' differing personalities. As renovations commence, Roxy and Melly find ample opportunities to instigate tension and, to their surprise, discover that they're a good team. But as their plan comes to fruition, they worry they're making a mistake. Throughout Melly and Roxy's distinct alternating perspectives, the authors sprinkle affectionate moments of burgeoning sisterhood into comedic mishaps, imparting raw emotional resonance into this frothy anti-rom-com. Both families are Latinx, and this book is recommended for ages 8 to 12. Next is King of Nothing by Nathaniel Lesor. A high schooler grapples with conflicting ideologies on how to be a man, a real man, in this empathetic novel by Lesor. Black 14-year-old Anton and his friends are at the top of the food chain at his South London school. Because of his father's incarceration for physical assault charges 5 years ago, Anton's classmates assume he's tough, an assumption he perpetuates with help from his friends, with whom he routinely disrupts class, picks fights, and bullies other students. When, after one too many detentions, Anton's mother enrolls him in a volunteer organization, Anton is paired with Matthew, the one classmate spared from Anton's torment, and the only person who never cracked jokes about his dad. As the boys grow closer, though, Anton's friends, claiming Matthew has made him soft, present an ultimatum: drop Matthew or become the group's next target. Anton's father's release from prison complicates things further. As he navigates sometimes heavy experiences informed by the pressure of toxic masculinity, Anton's charismatic and comedic first-person narration details his reluctant friendship with Matthew, whose open vulnerability and willingness to connect with others models for Anton a previously unknown example of moving through the world. This book is recommended for ages 12 and up. Next is Right as Rain by Tashi Bhuiyan. A Bangladeshi American teen struggles to manage her depression, especially when a literal cloud that reflects her emotions starts following her around in this affirming speculative novel by Bhuiyan. Meg Rashid is desperate to get away from her constantly arguing parents in New York City and attend UCLA. After she's waitlisted for admission, though, she fails to see a way forward, and her depression worsens. Things seem to improve when her cousin Sadia helps Meg land a TV production internship at the Today Show. When Meg finds herself in possession of her own rain cloud following a lightning strike, and the cloud seems to affect the moods of the people around her, she resolves to improve her life outlook. With help from attractive Turkish-American fellow Today Show intern Lev, Meg attempts to find joy in the everyday. But her tumultuous home life with her antagonistic parents continues to drag her down. Splashes of romance alongside the sometimes playful misadventures inspired by Meg's wayward emotional barometer inject levity into an insightful commentary on mental health and the way it can impact all areas of life. Vivid characters and quick-witted dialogue distinguish this affecting work. This book is recommended for ages 12 and up. And the final book to look at this week is These Shattered Spires by Cassidy Ellis Salter. Rival teen witches unite to circumvent their doom in this heart-rending trilogy opener from Salter. Wrestling magic from an element is injurious, excruciating work, so arcanists, those able to use this power, enslave magically gifted children, dubbed familiars, to perform these actions. Fortunate familiars live into their 30s, but when someone inside the dome-encased Four Spires castle commits regicide, Bone Witch Taro, Botanic Witch Nixie, Stone Witch Alice, and Blood Witch Elliot, Each an 18-year-old familiar to the head arcanists of the 4 disciplines fear their days are numbered. Royal tradition dictates that the head arcanists vie for the throne via mortal combat, after which all losing arcanists' familiars must die. According to a Forspire's ghost, survival lies outside the dome. To break the centuries-old curse anchoring this dome, Taro, Nixie, Alice, and Elliot must join forces. But a failed attempt could end in apocalypse. Salter deftly balances the intersectionally diverse characters' grim existence with gleeful, gruesome world-building, snarky banter, and fraught queer romance. Candid, close third-person narration alternates between the quartet's perspectives, revealing the pain and yearning that underlie the protagonists' outsized personalities while fostering tension and drive. This book is recommended for ages 14 and up. Next, we'll be taking a look at some news. But first, if you appreciate the work being done on the Book Fair podcast, there are a number of ways to show your support. First, you can like, comment, or follow wherever you are currently listening to help push the show to new listeners. Second, you can follow the podcast on Blue Sky, Instagram, and TikTok at BookFairPod. You can also go to patreon.com/thebookfair to find episodes posted early as well as links to news sources used throughout the show. Following on Patreon is free and there are no posts hidden behind a paywall. Of course, the best way to help the Book Fair podcast grow is simply to share it with a friend, an educator, or a young reader in your life. Now on with the show. Let's take a look at some news, starting with an ongoing challenge to a Florida book banning law. In June of 2024, 3 Florida parents filed a lawsuit against the Florida Department of Education for HB 1069, a bill which would set up a system for parents to challenge titles in public schools. The plaintiffs in this case argue that the law does not give parents the ability to contest book removals, making the process completely one-sided in favor of censorship. However, in 2025, U.S. District Judge Alan Windsor dismissed the lawsuit, suggesting that parents should bring their complaints to their local school board. However, without a proper ruling on the law, there are no administrative processes or legal obligations for parents or districts to follow. A school district can unilaterally ignore the overwhelming majority of parents that oppose book bans. The skewed perspective of the law is not overlooked by others, with a new appeal to the case being filed. A representative for Democracy Forward Foundation gave an oral argument in court, saying the law, quote, intentionally stilted the discussion, and in doing so excluded parents, like the appellants here, who hold a different perspective. Whether the parents who disagree with the school board's decisions can engage with the state depends entirely on whether they disagree with removing the material or disagree with not removing the material. No case in this court or in the Supreme Court supports that type of thumb on the scale for one side of the debate. End quote. CourthouseNews.com has an extensive article covering the latest on this appeal, including a transcript of arguments given by appellants and judges. Next, again out of Florida, a new bill has recently passed the House of Representatives and is awaiting deliberation in the state Senate. HB 1119 passed the Florida House of Representatives, and if it passes the Senate, would add even more restrictions on schools and libraries than the state has already imposed in recent years. One aspect of many obscenity laws is inclusion of language for literary, artistic, or scientific value of the material instead of outright removing anything that contains mature themes. This new bill would remove the long-standing rule that all schools and libraries hold for material, meaning that sexual education materials biology textbooks, and classic literature could be up for removal based on parental complaints. Alachua County Public Schools media specialist Patty Duvall said of the bill, quote, "We're concerned that if it passes, it will impact our students in a negative way because it will prevent them from having access to quality literature." End quote. According to Duvall, Alachua County schools received 37 challenges in 2023 and 2024, all filed by one person. Another district, Bay County, received 132 objections, all in a single week. These bills from Florida and other states create a heavy workload for school staff. Each challenged book must be reviewed individually. The current policy, which often varies from district to district, has review committees consider multiple factors when evaluating a book, including its overall value and intended age group. HB 1119 would remove their ability to consider literary, artistic, or scientific value when sexual content is cited as the reason for a challenge. Duvall also said, quote, "We want to work towards collections having books that all students can see themselves in." End quote. This includes sensitive topics, such as sexual assault. Seeing their own stories represented helps to empower victims to come forward about abuse. When censorship takes hold, some students lose one of the few resources available to them. Lobbyists have expressed that they do not expect HB 1119 to pass the Florida State Senate. However, that doesn't mean we can ignore these bills when they arise. It's important to stay informed about what bills are brought up, who introduces them, and how much support they have. With midterm elections coming up this year, make sure you are an informed voter. Know who your representatives are, and make sure your voice is heard, either by calling their office or in the elections if you are eligible to vote. Now let's take things from Florida to Wyoming, where we have a couple of positive stories to highlight. A book titled The Absolutely True Diary of a Part-Time Indian by Sherman Alexie was challenged for removal from middle and high school libraries within Laramie County School District 1, and in a surprising turn of events based on the track record of book bans in the United States, was found not to meet the district standards to be labeled as sexually explicit and removed from library shelves. An appeal was made to the school district, and the board affirmed the committee's decision. Superintendent for Laramie County School District 1 defended the review committee's judgment and added that The Absolutely True Diary of a Part-Time Indian is not included in any class curriculum. Board trustee Barbara Cook put it best, saying, quote, "I don't have the right to say no for other parents or other children. I just think the process was followed, but I also think it was a great book." End quote. Board chair Alicia Smith, however, said she wouldn't want her 13-year-old checking the book out. However, the opinion of the board is ultimately irrelevant, as the appeal was over the process and not of the content of the book itself. This is how book challenges are meant to be handled. An impartial review board comprised of parents, teachers, and community members, and leaving the school board's personal beliefs completely out of the decision to remove or not to remove a book from school shelves. And our final story for the week, also from Wyoming, a book ban that has failed to pass. Wyoming's book ban bill, HB 10, managed to squeeze through the House of Representatives, but was declined to be brought to the Senate floor before the general file deadline. It went through the House, sent to the Senate for consideration with a 48-13 vote, but it will not be taken up for a vote by the Senate. The bill would have required librarians across the state to move books deemed sexually explicit to other sections away from areas accessible by minors. The House committee for the bill narrowly passed with a 3-2 vote after hearing comments from the public. 9 people spoke in favor of the bill, and 5 spoke against it. With more support from the bill than not, it is surprising that HB 10 ultimately died before reaching the Senate floor. However, it is still worth celebrating this small victory while we can. This will conclude another episode of the Book Fair podcast. Coming this Friday, we have an interview with middle grade author Melanie Hill. If you'd like to stay up to date with the show, you can follow wherever you are currently listening, or on Instagram, TikTok, and Blue Sky at Book Fair Pod. If you'd like to help the Book Fair podcast grow, you can also go to patreon.com/thebookfair. Following on Patreon is free, and there are no posts hidden behind a paywall. You can find links to news sources as well as episodes posted early. Simply add the RSS feed to your preferred podcast platform. Of course, the best way to help the Book Fair podcast is simply to share it with a friend, an educator, or a young reader in your life. Thank you so very much for listening, and as always, I'll talk to you next time.